When I put the announcement online that I was doing a seminar in Drayton Valley, one of the first people to reach out to me was a friend of mine, an old competitor as well as a fellow black belt, Rob Thompson. Rob and I actually go way back. He started in the year 2004 and I started in the year 2007. So he was a few years ahead of me and almost always about a belt ahead of me as we went up through the ranks. But we competed against each other a lot, and we were just from the same scene, so we'd be at all the same tournaments. As we got higher up in the belts, we would start to do refereeing together as well. And that was just another way that we got to know each other really well while we were refereeing and during our breaks. Rob had been following what went down with my gym, and he really empathized with all the struggles that I had gone through up to that point because he himself had gone through basically the same thing, just an hour north of my location. So he reached out and asked if after Drayton Valley I would come out to Leduc, which is about an hour from there, to train with him at his location and run a seminar at Leduc BJJ. So it was a no-brainer. After Drayton Valley, we headed straight to Leduc. Found a nice campground that had a lot of cool parks next to it for the kids. And Rob invited me and my kids out to go to one of his favorite pastimes with his kids called Clip and Climb. Now, I've been to lots of climbing gyms in the past. I actually really enjoy indoor rock climbing, but this is something completely different. It's built in a way that's super fun for kids, has a really interesting level of difficulty, and was just super easy for them to get into and enjoy right away. I tried to get my three eldest on as many walls as possible, just for exercise, but also just to bring them outside their comfort zone. Even convinced a couple of them to go up on the tow rope up the giant slide. At the end, before we left, as is typical with Rob and I through the past, is there's a bit of a challenge laid. There's a couple walls beside each other that are meant for racing. They have a timer that you hit at the bottom and you try to race to the top to try to either beat your time or the person beside you. Now, I wouldn't call either of us adept rock climbers, but what we definitely are is competitive. And we tried to scramble up that wall as fast as possible, and I think by the end, Rob managed to eke me out by about a split second. But just like in Drayton Valley, after all the fun in the day was over, what I was really looking forward to was the training at the end. I would go out and help teach a couple classes with Rob, as well as get to meet a bunch of his students and get some training in with them as well. I was actually really impressed with the program that he had built there. Their warm-ups was extremely interesting to me. They did a lot of cool, thoughtful, functional movement warm-ups that were new to me. These are the kind of things that I'm excited to experience as I go to different gyms, is the different ways that they do things, and it helps me build an idea of what other options there are out there. Halfway through the week, Rob had let me know that there was a big plan, that Wednesday was going to be an important day. Being a newer gym, most of Rob's students are white belts, but he's getting to the point now that he's starting to promote some of the earliest students to blue belt. In fact, there was a very exciting promotion that was going to happen the same week I was there, unbeknownst to the person receiving it. That would only be his second blue belt promotion in-house and his first female blue belt. Now, every gym has a slightly different way of going about promotions. Some gyms in jiu-jitsu, they'll just hand a belt at the end of class. Other gyms, they'll try to sneak tie it onto them while they're rolling. Certain gyms will have a curriculum that has to be demonstrated. And then a lot of gyms will do what's called a Shark Tank, where they make somebody go through just a gulag of non-stop sparring to prove both their technique and their mental resilience. Now, unbeknownst to Christiana, who was going to receive her blue belt at the end of class, certain stories and excuses were made to keep her in the middle during all of the drills, all of the warm-ups, and at the end of class, she was set up to train one-minute round against every single person in the gym. All told, from start to finish, she did over an hour worth of straight training against resisting opponents, and the camaraderie that I could feel in the room as she would gut her way through the later rounds against larger opponents and not give up position, would listen to the coach and would constantly be looking for the next technique to get her to a better position, both for control, safety, and then submission, really roused the spirits of the gym. And I honestly felt blessed to be there to witness it.
She's been on the mat rolling for an hour straight. Non-stop, fresh guys all the time. So, huge accomplishment. That takes a lot of mental fortitude to dig deep and finish that. Congratulations, man. Take a second, catch your breath. Grab water, guys. Everybody take a drink.
Well, don't forget your teeth.
That's right. Nobody remember to forget. Don't forget your knee, right? Don't forget our knee. Don't leave it here for me to watch.
I see that face. How are you looking? Easy work.
Awesome, guys. Now, you take that picture on Christiana enough for 1 minute, right? But there's one thing I saw we're wrong. We gotta fix now before we go. So come on over here, Christiana. One little correction we gotta do before we leave today. And it's this. Always training, dedicated, always here, puts in the time consistently, right? That dedication is what leads to improvement. While we were shut down for COVID, Christiana trained the whole time through, private lessons non-stop, right? Half the reason we're all still here and the gym's still open is because of those people that made those contributions while we were closed, right? So I have a huge debt of gratitude to say thank you very much for your efforts and all that, but it takes more than just, paying your bills to get here. This hard work, day in, day out, blood, sweat, tears. If you guys know, being a smaller person and being a female, it's an uphill battle every day. Look around this room, right? There's monsters in here. There's some big boys, right? So fighting against bigger, stronger, tougher opponents consistently all the time, that's a very, very hard thing. That takes a lot of push, a lot of dig deep to bring yourself back to practice every day when you know it's an uphill battle. So it really takes, like I say, a lot of mental fortitude, a lot of work ethic to get there. Christiana's also blazing the way for all the females on the team, right? She's this is only your second in-house blue belt, guys, right? We got Spencer, you have to move to Christiana, is leading the pack. Are you right up at the front runner here? And like I said, she's one of the first females here. She's always creates that atmosphere that when other ladies come in, they're more comfortable and they can train. And now we're building up the female side of our team. Like we got more and more ladies training. And I think you're kind of a pioneer, the trailblazer that opened those doors for Kelly and Alexandra and Adriana and all those ladies behind you who've come to build up the team, right? So, again, like I said, huge contributions, and I want to see you keep it. I don't want to see the blue belt hiatus where you disappear after blue belt, right? I want to see you continue your journey through purple, brown, and all the way, right? Because honestly, guys, that first color is the hardest part. White belt's a tough thing where you're always treading, right? Always just trying to keep your head above water. Now all the pieces start to see bigger images, and things start to come together, right? So congratulations. You got anything to say? Say a few words to the group. Nothing else? Just, you know.
I'm tired.
Absolutely. Like I say, physical endurance. That was a feat of endurance, right? It's a very, very hard thing to dig deep like that against fresh people. And it wasn't just that last 20 minutes. She did the whole, 40 minutes before that, right? So I make you guys work for it. Definitely well earned, man. Like, there's no quibs about it. I, as you guys know, am super, super sticky and strict when it comes to belts and moving people up, even stripes, right? I have very, very high standards of what I expect of you guys, and you have, without any shadow of a doubt, met all of them. So congratulations, man. And thanks to you guys for coming out. Hopefully, like I say, when it's your turn, everyone will be here to support you guys, right? Because nobody gets there by themselves. It's a team effort, right? We all train and compete on our own, but we grow and learn as a team. So congratulations. Line up in your new spot. Perfect.
Christiana, that was an incredible Shark Tank. I'm so happy to be here for it. How is it?
It was very tiring.
Did you expect that was happening tonight?
No.
No?
No, I think I would have made an effort to get more sleep last night if I knew that was going to happen.
How many rounds was that? That was like a full hour, wasn't it?
That was almost a full hour.
Have you done many hour rolls before, or is this like...
It's an open mat, not like me only one after the other.
Yeah, that's pretty heavy pace, eh?
Yeah.
So how long have you been rolling here with Rob?
About 2.5 years, since 2019, early 2019.
Oh, good. And something that the professor was saying during the promotion was that you stayed active during COVID. A lot of people didn't. Did you find that was difficult for you? Or?
No, I always do it at home too. So.
Is that how you kept up, mostly home training?
Yeah. I didn't want to lose everything that I had already gotten, so.
Did you find that when you actually came back and things opened up that it paid off for you?
Yes, very much. It still was a little bit rusty, but not as bad, I don't think.
Well, congratulations, getting a second in-house blue belt. It's a pretty big deal.
Yes, it's very exciting.
Are you going to take it to the tournament? Is that your next move?
Well, I just registered as a white belt, so now apparently I am going to have to change that, I guess, or...
You can give you some paperwork.
Now I'm even more nervous. So.
That's all right. After what I've seen today, it's going to go really well. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
We got to promote another blue belt in-house, and like I say, we're kind of a early starting team, especially with COVID. We kind of went back to the beginnings and we're rebuilding, so it's nice to see some guys moving up into colors and building into the ranks, and it's nice to have that growth from within, right? So it's a big day for us, yeah. Yeah, so obviously there were some times where we were forced completely closed, but in between there were some opportunities where we were allowed to run one-on-one privates. So we actually had unbelievable support from our members during that time period. I was booked literally every day of the week and a few days on weekends just doing private lessons, and that, like I say, was basically the thing that made it so we could reopen the doors after COVID. So I'm hugely appreciative to all those students who, showed their faith and put in the time for private lessons, right? Jiu-Jitsu, I think, is important for anyone. I often liken it to like swimming lessons because I think it's a base life skill. It's something that, sooner or later you're going to be exposed to water, and that could be dangerous. I think sooner or later in your life, you very well could be exposed to some kind of violent altercation, and having the ability to at least be able to survive, if nothing else, but to be competent in defending yourself is huge. And even if they never have to apply those skills, fingers crossed, at least it gives them the confidence to be able to go through their day-to-day lives without, having to live in fear, having to, carry your keys in your hand in a dark alley kind of thing, whereas they know that if push comes to shove, they have the tools to defend themselves. So I think for ladies especially, I think everyone should train, but I think ladies especially, smaller individuals, and that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu, is that it gives a smaller, less physical opponent the ability to control and dominate a much bigger, larger adversary, right? So I think jiu-jitsu is the perfect kind of self-defense art as far as, because you don't get to control how big the person is or how small the person is or how fast or quick. So jiu-jitsu will give you a well-rounded set of tools that you can, first of all survive, second of all overcome, the altercations and keep yourself safe if nothing else, right? Christiana has been a hard worker since the day she walked in the door, right? She came in, she's had unbelievable work ethic. She comes consistently, 3-4 times a week, lots of times, and just puts in the hours. Like I said, she trained through COVID without any interruption as much as she could. And when we weren't open at all, she was training at home. But the main thing I noticed, especially for smaller individuals and ladies, is that it's very, very mentally difficult to keep coming when everybody in class is twice your size and twice your strength and bigger and stronger. So having that uphill battle, as I said, consistently takes a lot of work ethic, and it takes a lot of, drive and dedication. And I think for a female in a room full of men to get to that level is even more of an accomplishment. It's still an amazing milestone for anyone, but to do it, when you're going up double your size, double your strength, day in and day out, it's a big deal, right? So she's done amazing, and I'm super proud of her.
Once we got to the end of the week of training, it was time for the seminar. Now, leading up to the end of the week, I wasn't sure how many people were going to show up. I was absolutely blown away by the number of people that showed up. It's one of the largest seminars that I've ever taught to date, and including myself, there were 5 black belts in the room, which is pretty crazy for an Alberta seminar. We did a full 3 hours on the Rear Crucifix that really helped refresh all of the knowledge in my brain, as well as really expose the options and entries and controls that that position has to the people who attended. Everybody was very grateful for the seminar, and I feel like a piece of me was left there in technique form that I hope will be the seed to blossom into a real game-changing experience for all of the people in the room from white belt to black. After the seminar was finished, I wanted to sit down with Rob and sort of chat a little bit, both about the history of the Alberta scene that we both came up through, also about the gym that he built with his own hands, and then of course the struggles that we shared having both very young gyms during an unprecedented pandemic lockdown. So Rob, we just finished a seminar which you invited me to host at your gym, Leduc BJJ. I really appreciate the offer that you allowed me to come in here and teach your guys, and we had a heck of a turnout. I was actually really shocked.
Yeah, it was a great turnout. It was a great event altogether. So again, thank you so much for coming on. All the students that came gained and benefited, sharpened their game a little bit. And like you said, Crucifix is maybe a less focused on position because there's no points associated in IBJJF. So it's nice to kind of shine a spotlight on some of those niche positions a little bit. I think a lot of guys came. So, and yeah, great turnout, but I think that goes to show, the level of your instruction and technique that guys want to come out and learn from you. So you did a great job.
Well, I appreciate it. It's like everybody knows at this point, it's what keeps me going on this journey, keeping my family in the trailer. It's doing seminars, it's selling instructionals, and to be honest, it's what I enjoy doing anyways, and like really, we came up in the same scene at almost the same time. You were a couple years before me and always about a belt ahead of me, but we came up kind of in that same early Alberta BJJ scene. So what's strange though is that from all the time from then till now, this week is the first time I've been in your gym. So part of this getting around and going around is really just me like meeting the people that I know, but in the places that they know, which is really, I got a very warm welcome from all your students here. It's a really inviting place. If anybody's around the Leduc, Alberta area, absolutely, you got to come out to the Leduc BJJ. I want to talk a little bit about the building itself before we talk about like you and your running of it. But I specifically wanted this Torii over top of me. Do you want to give the story behind that?
Yeah, so the Torii gate specifically, it's actually Rodrigo Restendi's team symbol is the Torii gate. So a part of it is just paying homage to my original instructor. But I really like the symbolism of it as well, because in the original, Eastern cultures, the Torii gate is usually placed outside of, temples and places that are considered sacred, because it's supposed to create that threshold between the mundane and the sacred space, right? So I think it's really representative here in the gym of kind of separating, you know, the gym space. The mats to us in jiu-jitsu, you know, without sounding too culty, you know, it is kind of our sacred space. It's the place where, you know, you leave your baggage at the door, you leave your ego here, and you enter the gym space, you know, and all that, you know, the stresses that you carry with you. And for me, the business side of the things, you know, the office, as far as the insurance and all those kinds of aspects go of running a business, we leave that out there and we come into the gym kind of open and ready to learn, right? And I think that division there is the idea behind the Torii Gate, right? That when we enter the gym, it's, you know, a different mindset, and it's a different time to come train, to come learn, to come grow. And like you say, we work really hard on having that culture here where everybody can grow and everybody can learn. And I think that's part of why you said you felt so welcome, is because I think it's paramount that, you know, we build a gym that everybody can come in and build themselves up. I don't like the idea of separating the weak from the strong, you know, the old MMA gym where you come into the Shark Tank and it's survive if you can, and we'll see if we see you again tomorrow. I really like the, you know, everybody has a place, and we'll build them up to a point where they can all become competent grapplers, right? Mm-hmm. So that's my mantra, and I guess my mentality, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it stands out in this space when you come in and look behind it. It is a really cool focal point, but just the story behind why it's there, I love the meaning that you have there, and I could feel that vibe, you know, while I was training here during the week. Since you talked about being the army of one, having to build this thing, I want to start kind of there. Like, what was it like for you? This is the first gym that you've owned and operated, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So this is your baby, your heart and soul poured into this thing, but it was you from like ground up.
100%. Yeah. So like you said, I started back in 2004, which was like the dark ages here in Alberta. There was, you know, you were lucky to find a blue belt to train under. Like, things have changed and grown so much. But when I started, you know, I came up through and eventually trained under Enrique and then under Rodrigo Resende, and, you know, worked my way up. When I got to brown and black, I started teaching at Elite and at the gym in Spruce Grove. So I'd been teaching for probably almost a decade before I branched off on my own. But the decision came for a few different factors, but for me, a big deciding factor was my kids, right? My kids were getting old enough to the point where they needed to, or I wanted them to start training formally on their own. Like, we've always trained in the basement, but I wanted them to get to classes and do it. And unfortunately, in the area, there was nothing that met my standard, right? Mm-hmm. So you could either complain about it or you can be the change kind of thing, right? So I took my whole life savings, every dollar penny I'd ever earned basically, and I sunk it into this place. I was putting in 20 to 22 hour days, working full time and doing the renos and all this stuff. Like, I still work a full-time job and do this in the evenings and weekends. So, you know, I'd put in long days, but that was the thing, and it was just dig deep and get to it. And we opened in September of 2018, I think. And like I say, everything from paint to drywall to flooring was pretty much me or the people that were nice enough to come out and volunteer an afternoon here or there to help me out. So it was a big undertaking, but, you know, we had a lot of great growth and we built it up. And, you know, obviously COVID was a pretty solid speed bump for us. Mm-hmm. You know, it was pretty touch and go there. But other than that, you know, I think the gym really has grown and built to the point where, you know, I think, you know, unless we get into other crazy lockdowns, we've got a bright future ahead of us here, kind of thing, right? So, well,
that's part of the conversation I want to lead towards, because we have a lot of similarities, and one of the similarities is exactly what you just described. I poured everything I could into my gym. We built it from the ground up. It was the first place that I had, and I was doing it for about a couple of years before COVID hit. So we probably started about the same time.
Very similar, yeah.
And I want to hear your experience, because I know what I went through, but I want to hear it from another person's experience, how it was here in Alberta, trying to get through as a young business owner who, you know, this is so much, not just money, but like yourself poured into it.
It was unbelievably stressful and overwhelming. Like, it was probably one of the hardest periods of my whole life, right? And I've been through some stuff, but the COVID thing, like you say, when you have so much invested, so much time, blood, sweat, equity, and not to mention financially, and your family's on the line and all the other stuff invested into a gym, to have to go through those forced closures the way we did. And, you know, if in Alberta we had a 3-month closure to start, which was forced by the federal government, there were some subsidies and some things that kind of helped us through that. Then we were allowed to open to limited capacity, like private lessons only and things. And then there was another forced closure, which was 3 months. That was from the provincial government, and there was almost no subsidies, right? So the money For us here, we didn't charge our members through. Some people did, and everyone did what they could to survive, kind of thing. But for us, we had zero revenue. We had no money coming in, but all the bills, the leases, all that stuff was still coming out, right? So we were emptying the coffers at an incredible rate, draining the bank accounts, kind of thing. We were allowed to open again a little bit in between, do some privates, start to do some social distance classes, just limp things along, and then another closure came. So the third closure,
that was the one that crippled my gym. I almost got through it. And I remember after I had publicly announced that my gym was closing, you private messaged me saying, man, I feel that right now. Like, I'm not far behind. This is really bad.
Absolutely. And now you're not the only one. There was a lot of gym owners in that circumstance. And like I say, when the third one closed, if it had have stuck another month, we may not be here sitting here having this interview today, because I was that close. Like, the bank accounts were empty. And like I say, I saw your story, I heard, and it hit really close to home, because it was like, I was right there. And like you say, parallels are, we have a lot of similarities as far as, building our own things and starting from scratch and all the rest of it. But when it got to that point where they forced the third closure, like it was just so overwhelmed, and there was already so much stress, and you've built up all this debt. And I was looking at the realities of, like, now do I lose all my financial investment, lose all my time, all the blood, sweat, and tears of what I built, and still walk away $40,000 in debt because the CEBA loans were all personally liable and everything else. So not only were you going to lose everything, you were still going to walk away with a massive hole of debt to pay back, right? Yep. And it was a lose scenario. And everybody else, Walmarts and stuff, were allowed to open, but fitness centers were closed. And like, we never had a single case of COVID. We followed all the procedures. We had all the screenings and all the stuff we could possibly do. I upgraded my air handling to like surgical grade filtration. We did all the things we could do to give a safe training environment. But then to still be forced closed, it just wore on you. And by the end of the whole thing, like I say, I don't think we could have survived another month. We were hard to survive another week or two. Like, we just limped by. So I'm still crossing my fingers that we're out of the woods, that we don't have anything more coming down the pipe, because who knows what the future holds. But I'm really hoping that now we're going onward and upward from here, kind of thing, right? So
I've got to say, I am so grateful for the hospitality that you brought me in here, and you've taken such good care of me over the week. I can't thank you enough, Rob. It's been wonderful.
Well, today we had an outstanding seminar. There's 20 plus people in the room, kind of thing. And I think everyone from white to black belt walked away with something that they can directly add to their game almost immediately, right? Just build it in and use it. And those little progressions, those little things, that adds up to a lot in the long run. So I think you coming was a great opportunity for my students, for our gym, for everybody that came. So I want to thank you for making the trek up, and loading a family into a trailer and living in a campsite for a week is not an easy task either. So thanks very much. I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's because of the spirit and the drive of people like Rob that even allows a gym and a scene like Alberta and like Leduc BJJ to blossom. I truly believe that it has what it takes to become an absolute household name in the community, and my hope is that they've gone through the worst of it, and now it just gets better from here.